Welcome to Last on the Brakes. This time we are back, as promised, in video format. And that means this week we're going to treat you to a nice big slice of visual Briggs, because we're talking to Valentino Rossi's mechanic, Alex Briggs.
Yes, a minor Twitter celebrity, no less. Long-time mechanic of Valentino Rossi, as Fran said, joining us to tell us a number of stories from his many years in the paddock. Although we have had to record a separate intro to bring you some up-to-date on some of the things that we actually discussed, guys, because you're going to hear us talk a little bit about golf. And at the time of recording, Alex had never actually scored a hole-in-one. Do you score a hole-in-one? I'm not sure, actually. I think you do.
I don't know. As you can tell, we are not actually golfists.
No,
although
golfers.
We respect the craft muchly.
I did learn lessons in it as a kid, actually, and I enjoy it very much. I'm just terrible. But anyways, the update is that Alex, as of the 15th of April, I think he did it yesterday, he has in fact now scored a hole-in-one. Just a singular bounce. So bravo to Alex. Congratulations on that. Long time coming, so I'm sure he'd appreciate that update at the beginning. But on a somewhat different note, though, Fran.
Yes, well, as we all know, we hope that we're bringing you a little bit of entertainment with these podcasts to help us pass some of the time, as so many of us are in lockdown. There's some pretty serious stuff going on in the world, but for many of us, we just need to keep our minds occupied and keep doing the things we enjoy and try and connect with our passions. So MotoGP, unfortunately, we don't have any real racing at the moment. Hopefully we will have later in the season. So for now, we have a few things. We have the virtual races that I hope everyone's been keeping up with. Top entertainment, unless you're on the receiving end of a Takaki Nakagami overtake attempt. Some
true.
Great stuff, and seeing the riders all interact with each other and play the game is pretty interesting stuff. I enjoyed that. And then we also, of course, have the Esports Championship. We've just got the guys who've qualified now for the draft selection, so that's pretty exciting stuff to stay on top of as well. Congratulations if you are one of them moving through. And that brings us on to another good bit of entertainment you can get yourselves, which is the new MotoGP video game.
Yeah, brand spanking new MotoGP 20, available as of 23rd of April, all new improved. Players reading some of the stuff about it looks pretty immense, to be honest. Players can develop and change bike setups more than ever. You've got a managerial career mode, aerodynamic changes, which you can do more aerodynamic changes than the actual factories can themselves as of now, of course. And of course you get asymmetric tyre consumption as well, and seems like basically it's more realistic than ever. So what better way to connect to the sport in the absence of any other racing at the moment? And I think you can get it everywhere, can't you?
You can get it on all platforms: PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, Steam, Nintendo Switch. Anywhere you wish to consume it, it is available to you, or will be very soon, like we said, 23rd of April. And I do genuinely highly recommend it. Even if you're not usually that great at racing games, it's very entertaining. I struggle because I'm not very talented at it, but I'm also very entertained, and it's great when you make that progress. And it's a lot of good fun when you love the sport, like we all do. And unfortunately, like we say, we're waiting for some more of it to come back. And in the meantime, why not set a few lap records yourself?
Yeah, you never know, you might find yourself within some draft for future esports series as well. You just never know. You could end up coming to a MotoGP race yourself. How awesome would that be? But I guess without further ado, got the 2 bits of key information here. So Alex Briggs, now a star of hole-in-ones in golf, and also plug the video game. But I guess we should switch over to our minor celebrity friend in Australia.
We should, and I actually think I'm not wrong making this shout out. I think the game's actually released on Alex Marquez's birthday. Just doing a little bit of research for something else, and that's just stuck in my head, so...
Well, how about that?
Good present for him.
Happy birthday, Alex Marquez.
This is Alex Briggs then, like we said, a few days ago now, having a chat with us. Lockdown life in Australia, or almost, what he's up to, and what it's really like travelling the world and mechanicking around the world. So we have now finally got our video setup up and running. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you the audio-visual experience that you've all been promised. And yeah, hopefully you can hear us all okay, and we're ready to dive deep into the history of one of the paddock's best loved Australians.
Huh.
Well, it's quite a glowing review, isn't it, really?
I tried.
I'm slightly worried you're running out of content, so that's why I'm on. But anyway, we'll carry on.
No, it quite.
Right, so Matt, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, like Alex, one of the best loved characters, but we'll get onto a little bit more later. But part of the reason because of that is due to your Twitter profile, of course, which you'll know. But firstly, you've got it quite well documented. You got all the bases covered with your website, Wrench Racer. But for the people who don't know, tell us the origin story of how you got into Grand Prix.
How long have we got?
Well, you can do a brief overview, but of course we know that there is an FAQ questions on your segment on your website. So
I mean, initially I got into motorcycles because I was billeted to a farm at school, and the kid had a motorcycle. It was for hockey, actually, and I got into motorcycles. I loved it, and then as I went through school, I started racing dirt bikes. Got to a level where I was travelling around Australia with some of the guys that were considered the best riders, me not anywhere near that level. But that's where it started. And I was, at the same time, to pay for my addiction, I learnt to I became a mechanic for a government bus company in Canberra in Australia. And that paid for my addiction. All my money went to motorcycles. And then eventually, one of my friends, people started I started to work on friends' bikes that were quite good riders. People would ask them, "Who's working on your bike?" "Oh, me mate, Alex here," as we travel around Australia racing. And I eventually got asked by Yamaha Australia if they'd like, if I could work for them for their motocross team. And so I threw in the job that I had and did that. Went to Sydney. Slept on the floor at the team owner's place for a few years and got myself together. And anyway, and from there, I met more and more people, travelled around Australia more, and one day got a phone call from Jeremy Burgess. I didn't know this guy. So this guy, Jeremy Burgess, rings and says, would you like to go road racing? And the previous weekend, I'd just shaken hands to go to Europe as a motocross mechanic for Yamaha Europe for a guy called Marnik Beverts at the time. And his mechanic at the time, we all call Beefy in the paddock, and he's Cal Crutchlow's chief mechanic.
Oh, really?
So he was a motocross mechanic at the time. Anyway, I rang it was an Aussie guy, and I'd been recommended by a bloke called we all call him Buddha. He used to work for a guy called Jeff Leask, who raced in European motocross. This is going on a bit, isn't it? But anyway, I'll carry on.
It's all good.
Yeah, all right. So there's a bit of history. Anyway, so I got the phone call, and I said, "Oh, look, I've just got to ring another guy back." I rang Gary, who I'd shaken hands with to race in, as a mechanic to go to Europe as a mechanic. That would have been my first trip. I rang Gary. Gary said, "Oh, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, I've been approached to go road racing for a Honda as a mechanic." And but I shook hands with you, so what do you think? And he basically said, "Go road racing. It's a lot cleaner."
Literally or metaphorically?
In every sense. So he said, "Yeah, go ahead." I rang JB back, and I said, "JB, yeah, that'd be great." I've never met JB at this time, and basically he offered me the amount of money, and I said, "Really, I've got the job like that?" And he said, "Mate, don't worry, I can sack you anytime I want." So that was my first start, and the first thing I had to do was go to Phillip Island for a test. And I'd never worked on a road motorcycle at all. So that was 1992. Turn up there, and that was the beginning for road bikes.
Well, that's quite a beginning then. Straight in Phillip Island, first time experience of it. Yeah.
I remember the first job I had to do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
Sorry, I was gonna say when he says he could sack you at any time. did that add a lot of pressure for you, or for you was it kind of just a wild ride, like, okay, well, I'm not going to ride now, I'm going to be a mechanic, let's see where it goes? Or did you have the ambition of like, right, okay, now I'm going to be a mechanic at top level road racing?
Well, yeah, so I had been mechanicking because I actually, when I got the job at Yamaha Motocross in Australia, they called me, and at that time I had broken my tailbone, and I was sitting there at home myself, so it was a lot easier decision. I mean, I remember I had posters all over my bedroom. I thought I was going to be the world champion, you know, as a motocross rider. So, but I ended up working for world champions for road racing. But so it was an easy call, and then I ended up in Phillip Island. I forget where we were going with that. Sorry, Fran. What was the question?
Sorry, it was whether your ambition then changed to become like a top level mechanic and go as far as you could in that realm.
I never made a conscious decision to go anywhere other than I knew I wanted to go to Europe as a motocross mechanic. And then so when the opportunity came to go as road racing, I knew I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do more than what I was doing, but I had no idea where it was going to go. I had no idea who I'd work for. It ended up, in this game, it seems to be, you have to obviously work to a level, but there's definitely a big part of it is who you meet, who you know, and how you get on with people. That's a really big part of racing, is how you get on with people, because it's really easy to fall out and fall apart, and just you can be a fantastic mechanic and just not get on with people, and that'll finish you in a heartbeat. So I had no idea how long. I remember my mum saying to me, "How long are you going to do this for?" And I said, "I have no idea," you know, because in road racing for us, it's always been, apart from 2 times, I've had single-year contracts. So every single year is a single-year contract. You know what you're going to do the following year. So you're just an individual contractor. You're not an employee. I've had 2 2-year contracts, the one I'm in now, and which finishes at the end of this year, and when I worked at Ducati, that 2-year contract.
Wow.
Apart from that, I've always been 1-year contracts. So, yeah, but I didn't know what I was doing. I remember going to Phillip Island. The very first job was, they said, "Can you help this guy?" And this guy was named Patrick. He worked for Michelin. He's retired a few years ago. He was a great guy. And you have to go down under the bridge at Phillip Island, and your first job is to, when Mick and Daryl Beattie come around the corner, because Phillip Island is extremely harsh on the tyres, and the last corner you all probably know is really harsh. And they spin it up, and it's really, so they wanted to know the temperature. We didn't have sensors in tyres at that stage. So my first job is to go out there, when they stop, hold the bike, just hold it, nothing special, with a rider on it. And Patrick would check the temperature with a gauge. You stick it in the tyre like this. And that was the first thing. I'd never been to a road race other than on the watching in the before that. So the first time they went past me at Phillip Island, the very first time, I remember physically just going and not breathing. Like I honestly, I could not believe how fast these guys were going. I mean, my whole life I'd watched it from the sidelines. I'd been to Grand Prix before at Eastern Creek. But motocross is like 60, 70 Ks. Rah, 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 rah. These guys, they're like, nearly 300 clicks and far out. The first time, now I just go, come on, you can go faster than that. But then it was honestly took my breath away. So it was a pretty wild ride.
I want to step back to something you were saying a little bit earlier, because I'm sure many people like to, given your position and what you've done in racing, lots of people look at you and think, God, how do I get a job like Alex Briggs and stuff in the paddock? And I want to step back to a little bit you said about it being the human side rather than as well as obviously the professional, how good you are at your job. Could you give a little bit more about that for anyone who's listening thinking, oh, I'd love to work in MotoGP?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me that same question. I kind of think it's a little harder now than it was in a way, because when I started, the system was the Japanese in general owned and ran the team. They would hire a chief mechanic. The chief mechanic's job, they put the trust in the chief mechanic. So in that case, it was JB. And his job was then to build a team of people he chose as a chief mechanic to work and race this motorcycle. So in the past, that's how it used to run. Now it's there's much more layers. You have management layers who choose people, who hire and fire. They hire and fire the chief mechanics. It's just a lot more complicated now. But still, it comes back to you have to be competent, okay? But then past that, it's being able to get on. That's a really big point. And also now more than ever, because the season goes for so long. By the end of the season, people are sort of at each other for very small things, you know. It's probably how some people are going right now, cooped up in their houses with their
yeah.
They're picking up the things. And that happens in the paddock, because the paddock is kind of a family, and then a smaller family is your team, you know, and then the smallest part of that is your side of the team. So the team's always two riders, your side of the team. So you know, the best guys are the people that have stayed around a long time, generally are easy to get on with. They don't make too much of a fuss, can travel well, deal with jet lag well, and can eat anything, you know, because you know, I've seen guys come and go who are just steak and 3 veg, you know, and that's it. And eventually it just gets too much for them. They can't cope with it. Whereas for me, a really, really good part of the job, and probably the part I'm missing now and look forward to, is going places to eat something different, you know. I don't know if that's answered your question, but I mean, it's got a lot to do with your character, not just your ability and your skill.
I'd like to boil that down.
Sense.
I'd like to boil that down to if you want to work in MotoGP, you just have to have a really good palate, be able to eat anything. I think that's fine.
People ask me, they always say to me, "You must be a fantastic mechanic." I say, you know, I'm middle of the road, and they go, "No, but you are." And I go, "Well, personally, I know mechanics that are better than me. Like, I know guys that work in wrecking yards on motorcycles, and you can show them just the smallest part, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's an XL 250 1980 throttle cable," and you just go, "Jesus!" And they know these things, you know. They're like, but take them on an aeroplane anywhere, and they'll be ruined. So it's a big difference, you know, but just the way you approach it and stuff. But yeah, people always, I mean, really, I've only worked on like half a dozen bikes in my life, if you think about it. I've worked on, you know, so, and you can't buy them, so you can't go down the shop and get them. So I'm kind of useless. I'm really like a battery hen. I only know.
So obviously then the traveling is a big part of the job, and a big challenge, like you say. By the end of the year especially, you really feel that you spent so much time with such a small group of people. For you, how is that challenge? Because you live in Australia, which is probably the home of the greatest racetrack, I would say. However, the majority of the calendar certainly is not local for you. How is that for you, traveling so far? And you said you must love so much about it, but it must also be a challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely, as the seasons have got longer. When I first started, we did 13, possibly 13 or 14 races the first year in 93. So now we're up to 20 races. The season starts very early and it finishes late. You know, it's almost a sort of a year thing now. So that makes it longer and makes it harder, and you're more tired. That's definitely true, and it has made it harder. But I mean, you either do it or you don't do it. So I mean, if I complain and go, well, I can stop. You know, I can say I've had enough. But I just look at it as a really long bus ride. I don't really worry. It's the only time I sleep. I sleep really well on planes. I sleep a lot.
Same.
Me too.
Yes. I don't particularly. The thing I don't like about I mean, it's a first world gripe, is just the checking in, the checking out of everything, checking into a hotel, checking into the airport, getting on, getting off, all of those things. The actual flying, I'm pretty happy with it. In fact, in the majority of the times, I would fly through points or through the team, the system we have. most of the big flights, I'm in business class. It's not that bad, like, so I'm flying, I'm watching a movie, or I'm sleeping. I don't mind that. It's just the checking in and checking out is the thing that, if I had to pick something that was great, Sonia, was that. And the next thing would be having to go, this is going to sound so bad.
Wait for this.
Because I know what people are like. They go, oh, man, a holiday, great, a hotel. So you might stay in a wonderful hotel. And the thing that really annoys you and irks you after a while is like, oh, I've got to have a shower, I've got to get dressed, I've got to go downstairs, I've got to order dinner, and I'm tired and I don't really want to do that. Whereas at home, I just go, oh, I would just love to watch the TV and have a toasted sandwich in my underpants. Do you know what I mean? Dirty.
Yeah.
Sort of thing that after a long time you start going, oh, do I really have to, go to a 5-star restaurant and eat dinner with a bunch of guys that I ate dinner with yesterday,
Yeah.
They're the small things, and they're the things I was telling about that some people don't deal well with, and they're the people that don't hang around long in this job.
Yeah, I get you.
So.
Was there ever a point, obviously going through, with however many years you've actually been in the paddock and travelling, at any point where you ever considered, man, should I really move to Europe to make this a bit easier logistics wise?
I have had in a couple of times where I've had an apartment when I worked for Honda, so that was period from 93 to 2000, and we had an apartment, a couple of guys, and we did that instead of hotels. It was okay, but the hotels were just easier because you're really not there that long because you're off to a race back. And then when my kids were very young, they were 2 years old. 2 years old, yeah, 2 years old. I think they turned 3. My wife and I decided to do the same sort of thing. We'd go to Belgium, have a flat, and live there for the majority of the year. It's like 6 months or something, 6 or 7 months. But it was actually harder for us because my wife didn't know the language. It was great for the few days I'm home, and then once I went away, it was hard because she was left alone with 2 kids, no friends, no base. So we did think about it, but the problem was always came back to the same problem as a 1-year contract. If somebody said, hey, you're going to work for Honda for 10 years, or hey, you're going to work for Yamaha, for this long, or let's say, the whole time, what have I been, 27, 28 years or something? Is that right? I don't know. 93 to now. You guys do the maths.
27, yeah.
I think it's 27. So this it's 27th year.
It's because I was 26 the other week, and I was born in 94.
Right, okay. So I think, yeah, okay. So imagine that if they said, of course you would. You would have gone, right, I'm going to buy a property, and either both, but it just didn't happen like that. So, yeah.
That's a good explanation. That makes sense. So let's go back to riders then and career. When you first went into road racing, you said your first job was Phillip Island.
Yeah.
Who was the first person you worked with, and what was that experience like? How was your baptism by fire on tarmac?
Oh, it was awesome. It was great. I worked for Daryl Beattie. He had done fantastically well in the Japan used to have a fantastic championship for 500cc riders, and he'd done great, and Honda wanted him to go to Europe, and so we both went to Europe together for the first time. Me, him, his dad. It was great. I loved it. I remember everyone just taking the piss out of me so bad because I turned up to Phillip Island because we're going from Phillip Island on to maybe Japan. And I'd never been, and then off to Europe, and I'd never been to any of these places. So I had as a kid, but kids are nothing, right? So I had a dive bag. It was a jet ski bag, like as big as the biggest rider's bag you've seen. Well, now they have, but a massive bag, a backpack, a full camera bag with an SLR camera and a video, like with a cassette. You put cassettes in them and videos. Like I was going, and the guys, when I turned up with that, they just laughed and laughed and laughed. I remember meeting a guy called George Vikmanovich. Some people won't know him, and Wood introduced me to him and said, this guy here has forgotten more than you're ever going to learn. You know, it was one of those moments. And he looked at my bag and just laughed. George is only. It was so funny. And now I'm just a wheelie bag or a backpack. I never check on anything unless I have golf clubs, which is another story. But anyway, so really now I'm just hand carry only, everything. So I never check.
Your point about golf there, I do want to ask, how many countries have you played golf in during your entire career?
I should start counting them up. I don't know, but I've played at some really good places because of this job, you know, like I played at Pebble Beach, right, because with Gavin Emmett, and we played there one time, and my mate Stuart, just because we were there, you know. But it was $500 for a round there. What? But we thought, yeah, I know. But we got the flight paid for, if you know what I mean. Like, we're there, and now I think it's even close to $600. But anyway, don't think I'd pay that again. But it was great. St Andrews, I played in St Andrews because I've got a good mate through Twitter, through this whole game, Stuart, and Stuart lives not far from St Andrews in Scotland, so I go there when I get the chance. So generally, if I have a week between races and I'm not coming home, I try to take the clubs. I've got another mate in Spain, Steve, through Twitter again, and I go to his family. It's like, I think we've been doing that for 10 years now. I go to his place, play golf. It's great. I love it. We played in some weird places too, like places where you wouldn't think. Czech Republic I've played in with some of the guys from the team. There's a few guys in the team are crazy. Japan's crazy for golf, mainly driving range.
Didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, I think Japanese are crazy, but it's all about well, you know how they get into things like full blown. Yeah, so driving ranges are their thing there. It's good fun. A few of the guys in the team are addicted now.
All because of you.
Well, I like it because it's actually the opposite of everything we do. So people just like it because it's on grass, not on bitumen. It's just you, not a team. It's only your fault or your work only, so it's not a team thing. It's quiet because basically we're all, nearly deaf. Yeah. It's the complete opposite of everything I do. So I love it.
That's cool. So St Andrews, I went to university there, and now I'm really freaked out. If you were there at the same time, maybe we walked past each other in like 2012 and never knew. I
love that town, even if it didn't have a golf course. I think it's a great place. I love it. I love all the little nooks and crannies and little shops and stuff. I love it.
It is cool. It's pretty cool. I can't complain.
That's why I wanted to stay quiet, because I was like, St Andrews, okay, because of course Farrington University there. But really, okay, that actually links us on perfectly, because next I wanted to ask you next about Twitter. You mentioned there you got two good buddies who you go and play golf with from Twitter. You're one of the what I would describe as the OGs of Twitter, the old school guys of Twitter, from giving people a unique insight into the paddock. Where did that idea come from? Tell us about that.
The initial idea came from Susie Perry. Susie Perry's, you probably know Susie. I mean, most people might, especially if you're European or British. So Susie had got into Twitter and just told me about it. And I went, I'll see what it's all about. And this was early stages, you know, I don't even remember the year. 2009, 8?
Yeah, maybe 9 or so.
Okay, so something like that, and just to see what it was about, you know. And then once I understood what it was about, I just sort of started, you know. And I remember going to William when the following started. I mean, I remember just having like 2 or 3 followers, and it was just nothing. I didn't really understand it. I was just fumbling my way through. But then it started to just ramp up. Twitter took off, and this whole idea of looking into a sport or somebody's life from the inside just seemed to just blow up, you know. And I remember going to Willie, our team communications guy, media guy at the time, who still is now, and saying, Willie, man, I've got a problem. Yes, I've got this Twitter thing, and it's just going off the handle, you know. Like, he knew about it, he understood it. He said, "Oh, you know, for now, I think you can carry on and just don't be stupid with it." So off we went, and it just got bigger and bigger. And the reason I did it mainly was because I remember what it was like being a kid with all those posters in my bedroom, all of that, wanting to know what it was like to be, in my case, it was motocross and supercross. So if I could find out about the riders or the mechanics and what they did to bikes, I just would have loved that. So I've always kind of mostly had that in the back of my head. Like, imagine there's a kid now, he wants to know what it's like. That's who I'm sort of talking to, or I'm talking to people who want to see what it's like behind, because I wanted to do that when I was involved in racing as a kid or a young man. So I'm doing it for that reason. It kind of got out of hand, and now it is what it is. It was really good for a while. I had some fantastic games and ideas and stuff. But as teams got more and more corporate and more official, they came down more and more on me. So my scope was reduced somewhat. But then we had some great times. So the people that got on early, man, it was good fun.
I was one of them. So it was awesome. And
were you working in MotoGP at the time, or was
no? Like I was doing some amateur blogging at the time, like 2010, 2011. I was like, I remember even first getting, I don't remember what you said, but I remember getting a reply from you. I was like, Dad, I just got a reply from Valentino Rossi's mechanic.
It was a good reply, yeah. Like, I try to reply to people as I can, and I still like Twitter for that. Like Instagram, I have an Instagram account, and it's good for photos. It looks great and all that, but I really like Twitter because you can have a chat backwards and forwards. I mean, everyone talks about Twitter being a cesspool and all these things. I just have not found it. Like, I mean, I don't head off down political, I just don't do too much of things that would get you in massive strife. But generally, motorcycle people seem to be great, and I've never really had any trouble, and I love it. And like I said, I've met lots of people, not just these two friends. I've made plenty more. And it's, yeah. But the two golfing friends are, probably be friends long after Twitter's long gone.
Quite.
Well, that's a good review then, definitely, for that. And everyone, make sure you check out Alex on Twitter and maybe Instagram. You're going to have a lot more people trying to stalk you on there now.
I don't mind. I don't mind at all. It's just it's good. Like I said, if they want to see what it's like to be me, fine. I don't mind. Like I said, I remember being that kid, so no problem for me.
That's cool. Okay, so we're going to rewind then again, or I am going to rewind us back to your career mechanicking. So you started out with Darryl Beattie,
yep.
And then you moved on to somebody, like we said at the start, worked currently for one of the greatest ever, but there was another one before him as well. What can you tell us about the riders that you've worked with and your experiences with them? Just a little bit. We don't want too much dirt, don't worry.
People ask those sort of questions quite a bit. They always ask things like, well, the most question I get asked the most out of every question from when I've started to now is, okay, they find out what you do for a job, and then the next question is 99%, what's he like? That is the question that everyone always asks. And it's, I don't know what people actually want. Do they want dirt? Do they want me to say, he's a prick, I hate him, or what do they want? I've been so lucky, and all the guys I've worked for have been great. Darryl is the nicest fella you could ever meet, and I mean, he stopped in here not so long ago, had a chat. He was taking his kid for flying lessons. His kids are now the same age as mine, like 20-something, and he's still great. He's always pestering me to go on his trail rides. He runs a really fantastic trail riding business all through Australia. So Daz is great. Mick was a different type of person. Mick was as a racer, he's like now, and what he was like as a racer are quite different. And when he was a racer, he just wanted to be first at everything. He wanted to be the first guy in practice. He wanted to be the first guy in the race, obviously. he wanted to lead the first lap. He wanted to qualify first, which is strange because often he qualified crap. But anyway, but you know, and he would qualify first often. But the first lap he'd be like, make it hard for himself and had to come through again. He'd do that a lot, and we'd always just go, what was it? You know, anyway. So want to be first out of the test into the airport. That was another thing, like first in the rental car. It was like that. Okay, I remember he'd be first on the track, especially when we had private tests. It was almost like, okay, I'm done. I'm catching the 3 o'clock into the Gold Coast unless there's anything else. And that was it, you know. We're done. So off he'd go. And so he's a very intense rider. And he used to ride, in my opinion, he rode, I'd call it almost an aggressive rider, like a warrior almost, he'd get hyped up to go racing. Sometimes he'd pick a fight with one of the other mechanics. I think he would pick one just to get hyped up, but I don't know. He probably wouldn't say that. And he seemed to ride better when he was almost angry, a little angry or aggressive, you know. And he was great. He was the greatest. You know, but I didn't really know too much until I met Valentino. I didn't realise that races could be polar opposites almost, you know. Like, so Mick was aggressive, like all that. He's completely different now. But Valentino is, when people say, what's he like? I mean, he's like how you see him on TV. That's how he is, give or take. You know, there's obviously private stuff and there's a little bit of this and that. But generally what you see on TV is so close to how he is that you could almost say, great. And I've said in other interviews before, I think, that if he wasn't a great motorcycle racer and you were his parents, you would be proud of this guy because he's a good guy. But I mean, we're talking, these are interviews I might have done years ago. Now he's a 40-year-old man, you know. Yeah. I'm 50, he's 40. Like, it's a long time, but he was a kid when I started working with him. But he rides, in my opinion, he's always ridden his best. I would call him a happy racer. Like, he's always happy, jovial, rides best when things are going well, and he's up and happy. And he often would joke. He still jokes on the grid sometimes, you know, like about an umbrella girl or about another rider or about something, or the position we found ourselves in right at the back one time or here or there. So he's often a happy racer. It's hard to explain. Whereas Mick was an angry racer. Darryl was very focused when it came to the race, but he was generally a happy racer too, I would say. It's a bit hard to explain, but when you're right there. But anyway,
makes sense to us.
That's my take.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I understood what you meant there.
Like I'm rambling, but anyway.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we enjoy. Something.
I haven't worn this shirt since we did a photo shoot in, I don't know, I think it must have been Qatar, and that was it.
Really?
Qatar test. Maybe Malaysia, we did something, but that was it. And this morning I was going, where the hell is that shirt? I need a shirt. Off down the hallway, you know.
Well, that was what I wanted to ask you. I mean, it's been so long. You've got a lot of land, a lot of things to do around there, everything from growing pineapples of all things. You're the person who I realised how pineapples grew. I didn't know. And then you made a fly catcher out of, what would you say, sorry?
They're very simple.
Yeah, and great.
Pineapple.
And what you made a fly catcher the other day as well, which I don't think Ellen was quite too chuffed about.
Well, no, she said to me, there's a lot of flies, can you do something about it? So she said, can you make something? And so I made a fly trap. That wasn't the problem. It's just one of those ones where you cut a Coke bottle or something, turn the top upside down and tape it up so they go in, can't get out, you know. But you need an attractant, and most people use soft drinks or beer and I just, well, they're all on our dog shit right there. That's where the flies are. So I'm going to put that in the fly catcher. And I don't understand where the disconnect came. Like, clearly they like that. That's what's going to attract them. And then we checked it the following day, and there was nothing in there, but there was no flies either. So I said, well, it's that bad that there's just no flies here. So
perfect.
I should check it again.
And so what?
We have a bit of fun here. We have about 40 acres. We don't have any cattle at the moment. We've just sold all of them, but we've got bees. Like you said, we grow a bit of pineapple, just mucking around. It's not a viable farm. It's just an expense, really. But it's great to be able to live here, especially in this time when I've got so many things to do. I mean, I'm in the garage now, and there's a million jobs. I'd love to show you through it, but it's just that it's like when people say, "Oh, don't mind my house; it's a real mess." But that's what it's like in here. I need to clean that up.
After you, Fran, I was gonna ask a bit more
I
about
the
free time. No. But no, that was all covered what I wanted to ask.
Well, yeah, that's the biggest topic at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, we're all waiting to go racing again, hopefully at some point soon. What have you been up to then, other than your pineapples and that stuff? What's your kind of day-to-day situation at the moment? What are you getting into?
Well, over the last few years, I've let so many things go that I'm flat out busy at home. I could probably go another couple of months and still find jobs. So I've been on the tractor doing work. I've helped a friend do some work. I do a lot of work for our golf club. That actually in Australia we're still able to play golf as it's a sport, and we're under pretty strict rules. But at the moment we've got this sort of half shutdown situation going on. And that could change tomorrow, but. Anyway, so I've been doing a bit of work for them because I'm on the board of our little local country golf club.
Of course.
Yeah, but only because no one put their hand up at the board meeting, so I got a little club. But it's great fun. Today I had to work on my car because something went wrong with the brakes, so I had to do that. And I hate working on cars. Although you can see a nice car in the background. That's my wife's car. It's a 1960. Holden, so it's pretty nice. I generally hate cars. I like work on that one. So.
It does look quite a classic, I've got to say. Even from here, it looks pretty fancy.
Yeah. Well, 1960. Its designation is called an FB. Anyway, it's a good car. It's very basic. Maybe that's what it stands for. What else have I done? Well, today I weed killed on my quad bike, which is behind here too. There's a quad. So I sprayed some weeds. I've got endless jobs. I'm not even close to being out of job. My wife is going a little bit crazy because she's a comedian, a stand-up comedian, and all her work dried up in an instant. Like once all the clubs shut down, once all that happened, nightclubs, that's it. Nowhere to stand up anymore. All corporate gigs and emceeing, all of that disappeared for her. So I think she's maybe that's why she doesn't mind me coming to the shed. I don't know.
got to have your own space, I guess, if you're around a lot more than usual.
Yeah, and I've decided I don't think I'm going to shave until we start racing again. So
same,
wow,
but I don't think I'd even get to Alex's level if I did that.
I shaved for a week or two, and then I went, "What's the point?" So I'm just not going to bother.
Awesome. Okay, well, Alex, we've got something else which we want to do with you. Just at the end of every episode, we do a quick fire questions round. This one brought to you by Kenwood, is our lovely sponsor of the podcast. So thank you very much, Kenwood, as always, for sponsoring it. So it's very simple, quick fire. So a couple of the questions will be like just a standard one-word answer. A couple will be which do you prefer, either or. And myself and Fran will do one each. So you ready?
Yes, so.
Okay.
Hit me.
Okay, so take it away, Fran. First one.
So what's your favourite circuit?
I would say Mugello. I like any circuit with undulations and an elevation change. So Bruno, Phillip Island, Mugello.
What is your...
So Mugello's going to be number one.
Okay. Well, what is your favourite food?
Like I said, I enjoy all of them. That's what I love about this job. So I don't know. I like Thai. Actually, probably would be one of my picks. Thai food.
Good choice.
Good choice.
See, I love it all. That's part of this job that I really like.
So what's more hectic, Mugello or Misano?
They're both mental. For our team, it's crazy. In the team, we refer to them amongst the mechanics as this race is double points because that's how everyone seems to behave around us because they're all crazy. We're quite calm, but everyone around us, it's like, ah. I think Misano has probably become more crazy, just recently, but I love the craziness of Mugello.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, this is meant to be quick fire, isn't it? So I'm really going on.
No, but we can make it into an edit. You go.
Well, I remember going there early on in Valentino's career and walking around the circuit after one of the days, and when they used to have, well, they still do it a bit, but they used to have the engines on both sides of the valley with the exhaust pipes. You would have seen those, but everyone's seen them. And once they saw me, these guys, I can't speak Italian still, and Valentino still takes a piss out of me to this day about it because I told him I was going to learn the very first day I met him. So, and I haven't. But anyways, I go back to the story. Anyway, up the hills there, and you talk to these guys, and they were just, hey, come and have a look at this, And they give me some bread, and then they go, look at this, and they show me spark plugs that are just toasted from revving these engines all night, and they're just blown. They've got these engines blown to pieces, and they've got backup engines, car engines. It was great, And so walking, I love that. I love that madness, like the crowd, because it's a crowd that stays at the circuit. Misano is a day crowd, crazy for us. Busy. It's probably busier for us as mechanics because of our team and Valentino and. But I like the craziness of Mugello more than I like the craziness of Misano, just because I think that the fact that they camp and that type of thing.
Awesome. What is one retro motocross trend or phrase you wish everyone would still do or even say, if it's a phrase?
It's trick. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Well, I heard it in snowboarding more.
Right. Well, in motocross, it used to. In Australia, there was another phrase because it was a clothing company called Go the Rat, and it used to be a clothing company, and people used to just say Go the Rat when I was a kid. It was a great company. I bought retro shirts since with Go the Rat, and nobody knows what that means. But trick. Factory is cool too. Factory, like that's factory, dude. We used to say that all the time, and we still do a little bit. People say that.
That's awesome.
Now that I am in a factory team, what does that mean, really? It's factory.
It's better to say Go the Rat.
So I like it's trick, I like, man, that's trick, that little thing, that little bit that costs a lot of money and won't actually make you go faster, but looks good. That's trick.
Awesome.
So that's what I go with.
Okay, what are your favourite wins with any rider that you've worked with? So you don't have to pick one, but you can't say everyone.
Yeah. I would probably say the best one is Welcome for me with Valentino when he rode a Yamaha for the first time. That is probably still the one that's the greatest for me. Because I knew the whole background, I knew how we got there, all of that. With Mick, it's almost, this is bad, but almost like it's not as fresh in my memory anymore. But I remember when we won in Brno, he won the championship. That was my first championship, and it was in '94 in Brno, and I remember that. But I was still a kid. I remember going to the nightclub afterwards and getting kicked out, and Daryl trying to save me and a little bit of a punch up and stuff. It was great. So I remember that. That was good.
Wow.
Welcome.
What a story.
Easily the best. And you should hear some of this. That's another time. There's a couple at Barcelona. The one where Valentino and Jorge go for it, hammer and tong. And to be honest, it almost seemed like it just depended on what lap it was going to finish. I know that Valentino's pass was fantastic, and if you watch that, you can see that he makes the predetermined decision to shift a gear down to make that corner that he would have lost out down the straight clearly, but it was enough to get him over the line, So that was a good choice, and obviously it was a famous race. But Laguna was good with Casey because of just it was good. It was a strategy there that JB and Valentino came up with, because basically Casey was going to kick our ass easily that race. And I remember JB and Valentino had said, well, I don't know if it was JB, but I think JB had said, the only way you can win this is if you get in front of him, because he doesn't expect it. Because he should have just kicked our ass easily because he was fast. But so Valentino, all he did that whole race was just try to get in front, by any means, get in front, and just keep doing that. Because if he was to do one lapper in front, we were toast. So
wow.
And that was a good race. But still, welcome. And welcome, I think Dorna, MotoGP just played that race, I read somewhere just recently. Was it a free thing or something?
BT Sport were doing a big show about it, and then yeah.
Right. Okay. So that was a great race, and the bike was okay, but it wasn't great by any means at that point. But Valentino made the difference. He wanted to win that so badly, and so did Max, because Max had been saying, if I only had a Honda, I could win, all this sort of stuff. And so it came down to a lot of pride in that race, and it was one of Max's best races, in my opinion. Max will disagree, I'm sure, but just I remember being, and then just seeing Valentino ride with a bike that was good, but it wasn't great. We'd done a lot of work to get to that point, and he just made the difference. And all that year we had lots of issues, but he kept making the difference. So that race is still, that's the one. And the party after that, oh man. it's not a party like people always say to you, what's it like? You must have a great party, And I remember saying one time in an interview, and got in trouble for it a little bit, I said to the interview person, it's not all hookers and cocaine, and I think people think it's going to be like this. It's like the race finishes, and you guys know, because I see you guys working, I know what it's like, you know what it's like. We just pack up, and it takes ages to pack up, and then we go to a hotel, and we fall on the bed sometimes and wake up 3 or 4 hours later still dressed. And people just go, yeah, you must party so hard.
And you're like,
but welcome. But welcome, we did have a party, but it wasn't a party like that. It was a party it was really just pure joy from all the people involved, the Japanese, and a relief and accomplishment. It was just everything you could think of. And people ended up in swimming pools and stuff. And I remember the Japanese in the morning looking across at we didn't have mobile phones then, so everyone would, how you get thrown in a pool now and you just go, oh my God, my phone. That didn't happen then. And the Japanese were walking to their plane at the airport, I remember, just listening to the noise of the shoes squelching because they were still wet. That's one change of clothes. So that was great. That was awesome. Great. That was probably. So that's my race. That is a very short answer, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Totally worth it. Okay. Next one though. We're mixing these up between racing and then personal as well. What's your personal ratio of a good game of golf to a frustrating game of golf? In golf, well, I tell you, in golf, you can be crap all day and have one good shot, and that'll bring you back. You just go, man, I hit that so good. And unless you're a golfer, you'll never know the feeling of actually hitting the ball properly. It's really hard to do. It hardly ever happens. But when you actually get one out of the middle, it does what it's supposed to do. It goes as far as it's supposed to go. And there's a shape to a golf ball when it flies in the air, which seems bizarre to anyone that doesn't play it. But you see the shape of the ball, which means the way it's travelling, and you just go, that's it.
have a crap game or just crap. The one shot, that's enough.
Awesome.
So.
Okay. Maybe one day I too will know that joy. But for now.
Thank you. My wife can't. She hates it. Valentino said he doesn't think it's any good. It's too slow. But a couple of other guys, his rider coach, Idalio, he and I are a similar level, so he loves it. I played with him in Spain, and I think he had his very first hole-in-one. I've never had a hole-in-one.
Wow.
And but he's a typical, because he's an ex-rider, right? So he's typical rider. Like, it was a great shot and it went in a hole-in-one. He's still like, it's not quite perfect. And he's Idalio. It's a hole-in-one. But no, they've still got something to complain about.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, next one. Favourite film?
We just talked about this the other day because someone sent me one of those chain Twitter things, you know. I'd say On Any Sunday. It's a motocross film. Great from choice. way back. It was my number one film. The Big Lebowski is another really good one. And
also classic.
And Star Wars, because I remember going to Star Wars with my dad. That was one of the first. I was homesick. I think I'd crashed my bicycle or broken my arm or something, and my dad took me to Star Wars. So I've done that with my kids ever since. And so that. Oh yeah, we've done the midnight screenings of Star Wars with my kids.
Awesome.
Well, one of them makes it a bit. So, but yeah, so Star Wars, The Big Lebowski, and On Any Sunday are probably my top three. Do you ask one or two or three or just one, right?
Just one, but always more is better.
This whole thing is just rambling. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. The guy for the quickfire questions video, we can edit it. It's not a problem. But this is all gold. It's fine. It's fine. What is the scariest animal you've found lurking on your property?
The brown snakes are the ones that scare you here a little bit. Everyone calls them brown snakes. They're snakes that are actually can be aggressive. Like most of the other snakes, even though poisonous, generally want nothing to do with you. But most of the ones around here are fine. The tree snakes or black snakes. There's ones that can kill you. Okay, yeah, sure. But the brown snake can kill you, and they're aggressive. Most people in Australia, if they get bit by a brown snake, survive because we have, anti-venom and sometimes they will even bite you and not inject you with venom. It's just a piss off bite, kind of thing. But, I've never been bitten by and don't want to, and most people get injured by them trying to kill them or trying to move them. Best thing to do, just walk away. Walk away.
Top tip.
Yeah. The other one.
Next one is a simple one. Vegemite, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. What is one thing... Actually, no, I'll do it because these ones come in twos. What's one stereotype about Aussies which isn't true?
I think they're all pretty true.
Well, the next one is, what's a stereotype about Aussies that is true?
You tell me one that you know, and I'll say, yep, I've got a mate just like that. Do you know him? I mean, like, you tell me, like Vegemite. Most people do. Most Aussies do. Eat meat pies. Most Aussies do.
Shrimp on the barbies.
Yeah, that was more of an advertising campaign, but we just throw everything on the barbecue. So shrimp on the barbecue is more for when no one calls them shrimp, really. It's just a prawn. But,
yeah, we're not Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the ones that's not quite right. But that was more for an advertising campaign to America and the shrimp on the barbie thing. So.
Okay, that would make sense. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but in Australia, we throw everything on the barbie all the time. Bit like Americans, we like, and South Africans, we love the barbecue.
Perfect. Over to you, Fran.
I'll share the meal. I'll do the meat on the barbecue. Ellen will do the vegetables. Because if it spits everywhere, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to clean it after. Yeah. You just leave it until next time.
Okay. All right. Two more.
All right.
First, is it you, Fran?
I think it's you, but then you paused, so I was like, ugh.
Okay, I'll
Jump
go.
in. You like Mick. You like Mick, Fran. It's got to be first.
Is there such a thing as a more complicated circuit for a mechanic, regardless of the rider?
Yeah, but only due to garage. Nothing to do with the circuit, other than. I mean, you're talking from the setting of the bike. I don't. From my perspective, it's the garage facility or the difficulty to get to them can be. There's some are great, some are terrible. They're all generally pretty good now. Phillip Island is actually one of the worst ones, which is bad. It used to be Donington Park, and then until when we scrapped Donington Park, now it's Australia's kind of one of the worst. It's a great paddock, great atmosphere, but actually working in the garage, really small, very low, that sort of stuff. Whereas places like Aragon, Barcelona, most of them, are quite big and easy to work at. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so finally, that's a good answer. So finally, the last one then. What is the rider's, or if it's not Valentino, a rider's best celebration you've seen?
Their celebration. I mean, there's the classic Valentino ones, like the toilet. Was it Aprilia? Wasn't it 250 or 125 when he ran into the toilet? That was a classic. I don't know. I see them on TV. I don't see them so much on the race. I remember just being relieved. I think went okay. I kind of like it when he just looks at you as he goes past, and you can see his face or his eyes. Then when he goes past on the pit board, or I used to do the radio out on the track, and sometimes he would stop and say, hey, thanks, whatever, hug. So those were the ones that I remember, but specific. No, I remember some that went wrong that are classics, like getting beaten in Germany. I think Sete beat us over the line. He was going to have a classic celebration with the. They'd made a fake tower from Tavulia. They were going to bring it out, and it was halfway out in the gravel trap with the I don't know what you call them, the vicar, the priest, or whatever from the town, and they had to back it up, and he didn't understand what was going on. So because he was about to win, but he didn't win, so that was kind of just a disaster one. Went all.
Oh,
I don't know.
Well,
actually, I'm sort of thinking of it. The one I like, the one we won in Donington Park in the rain, and I think he stood up on the foot pegs, and did he play like the violin? Was that then? Like he went.
Yes, I think so. I can see it in my head. I'm not sure which race it was.
I reckon that was Donington Park. It was pouring rain, and he was leading. But he kept going faster and we were all I remember just freaking out going, he doesn't need to keep going faster. The guy you need is Valentino. He knows not just his racing, he knows every date, every lap of everyone else's race in cars, in Formula One, in rally cars. He's like a computer. So that's what you need to ask. Like, he's unreal with that stuff. But I'm hopeless, obviously. But I think it was Donington Park, and I think it's in the rain, and it might have even been his first win on a 500.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
I've done this too long.
Yeah, I know. People in the comments, they'll just be going, they don't understand that it just will fall into a blur.
This guy, clearly, how did he get the job?
No, okay. Well, that's all we have from Kenwood. So thank you for those. Not so quick fire, but still golden. So can't knock those whatsoever.
You can edit it. Yeah, then you're going to miss out on all that gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. Well, I think that pretty much concludes today's podcast.
Yeah.
Video, audio experience.
Yeah, visual Briggs.
What's that? Sorry.
Visual Briggs. We dubbed you in the intro for this one because this is the first one we've done through Skype video. Yeah, it was a bit of an experiment.
Yeah, you've done the previous ones to this.
Well, we had calls, and then we did 2 in person. We had Randy Mamela at the Barcelona HQ, and then we did Tom Luthi in Qatar. But then this is the first ever try with Skype.
Okay, cool. Oh, it seems to work okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think so.
I hope everyone at home has enjoyed this and well, gotten to know you a little bit better. And also, apologies if there are any technical gremlins. We hope it's been all right my end in my ears. So hopefully, all good.
I think so too. Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, all right, great.
Well, Alex, stay well. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
You guys too. See ya. Bye.
Bye.